Good day, viewers. Welcome back to the Preaching Humanist with David Oliverio. That is our special day here on set. Look who I have here with me, the Vanguard guys.
Hey,
Got
Owen.
Derek Hawke, very famous, and the other famous guy, Phoenix over there. Some of you guys and people out there have seen these two faces on the Atheist Vanguard show. So I just want to help promote their show, the Atheist Vanguard. But before we get talking, and I turn it over to you guys, I do want my viewers to hear your backgrounds a little bit, briefly. I know you both have different backgrounds. We've discussed them quite a bit because these guys go out with me on the weekends and they do a lot of interviews, San Antonio, wherever we go.
It's always fun.
It's a blast. It's so fun. But so let's go first with Derek. So Derek, give my viewers just a quick little bio, a little teeny-weeny background of your religion, the way you're raised, and your all-important deconversion story.
Gotcha. I walked down the aisle and gave my life and was washed in the blood when I was about 6 years old. I know, it's like a vampire cult, isn't it? It's kind of gross when you think about it. Well, the thing religion really did for me was it really taught me how to hate myself. And I realized that and when you read into my adolescence, that really was prominent is just this self-loathing. And having grown up in that religion, but also being a natural skeptic, those two clashed a lot, which caused a lot of derision within the family, a lot of division within the family. Quickly became the black sheep of the family, kind of questioning, well, why come? That was my when I was a kid. Derek was why come this, why come that, and of course we know that this is before the internet, and back then those were highly discouraged to do. Why does not God doesn't speak to me? Why do my prayers sometimes are answered, not answered? Why do good people die, or why do bad people seem to get rewarded? All these type of things. And it was my early teens when I kind of lost my faith, and that's a whole other story, kind of personal. But I do remember the exact moment I lost my faith, and it was during my military years when I actually started on a pathway of rejecting religion. I spent and I was using the wrong definition of agnosticism versus atheism. I refuse to use the word atheism because of the stigma behind it, or the kind of the evil type of association with it. That again, I was using wrong definitions. And my definition of agnosticism at the time was there may or may not be a God, but I really don't care. Yeah. And it was a verbalization of my hate of God, because I hated God for a long, long, long time. And I refused to use the term atheist because that was the point of no return. I was always taught that once you rejected Christ, that was it. There was no going back. That was the unforgivable. That was the line that you could not be crossed. And it took me about 10 years of self-exploration and whatnot. So now I am one of the hosts of Atheist Vanguard. I'm also a published author. I have 2 books, short stories of horror stories. And believe it or not, a lot of these stories that I've written about 35 to 40 short stories, and a good 50% of them are very allegorical and self-biographical as far as coming to terms with religion and how I just, a lot of it is actually a victim learning not to be a victim anymore. Yeah. A lot of my stories are or just trying to understand, how I grew up in this type of environment and how I kind of succeeded out of it. And just these stories just kept on flowing. And I hope to have the 2 books that I've been participated in were anthologies that I contribute short stories, but I hope to have a book primarily just of my stuff and my artwork very shortly. Yeah,
and what you do, Derek, and one of the main reasons you're doing this stuff, I'm sure, is to help other people with what happened to you, right? And reaching out to other people.
Part of it is that. Part of it is actually helping myself. Because as I go on this journey of exploration, and the times that I've gone out to the Alamo and whatnot, I've actually had to start to work on myself because I do get angry. I still get angry. I still have that indoctrination that's kind of inbred in me that I know that it'll always be with me. It's always kind of like this balance of always self-checking myself, because it always defaults back to this fear of hell, fear of dying, fear of not doing good or being good enough. So.
Well, the first time we met, I want to tell you, I think you've come an awful long way in just a year or two, I guess, since I've known you.
It'd be exactly a year.
Is that it?
It was October of last year.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, the first time I met you. And you seem very, like we all have gone through, those of us that came from a hardcore background. And I've seen you heal up quite a bit. But and a lot of it has to do with you've just been in a good, loving environment with other people.
Correct.
It's funny how that works, is it? Just a simple, good old loving from other people.
Right. I mean, when you find community like it is here, you find more than that. You find, not only do you find friends, but you find family.
Yes.
You find people that think like-minded, can help you challenge yourself and also explore different things. Because there's more to us than just atheism. Way more. I was just telling a good gentleman I just met that atheism is such a small part of who I am. There's so much more. First and foremost, I'm a humanist. Atheism is just a small portion of one statement of a stance of a belief, and that's, is there a God or not? And that's, to me, in my life, that's such a small part. And it doesn't dictate my actions on. So when I conduct Atheist Vanguard, it's really about trying to understand what people believe and why, not to judge them for what they believe and why, but just understanding what they believe, why they believe it, how they come to those conclusions, and then going from there to understand that.
Yeah, the epistemological approach.
Yes.
Something that I advocate for strongly myself.
Yes, Phoenix, you do that very well. Phoenix goes out with me and with the team, I guess, quite a bit to San Antonio and Georgetown. And of all the people that have gone out there with me, Phoenix, you're one of the few that really have an extra amount of patience with people, and you're really good at that epistemology. I listen to you. You're good out there. So,
I do have the fault of getting carried away with the emotions of the person I'm talking to. So that is something I need to work on, and also getting distracted by when they start diverging to alternate arguments from addressing the one that we started with.
Yeah,
I'm then failing to bring that back. So those are things I'm working on, but I do focus on the epistemology first and foremost.
We're all learning. Always growing.
We always get
I
working
make
to get better
all the time. Keep learning, keep evolving, and growing. So basically, quickly, give us a background. Yours is a little different than Derek's.
Mine
quite a bit.
Mine's a bit of a doozy, so I'll try to summarize it as briefly as I can. I grew up Catholic. But I had a multi-denominational exposure growing up. My first girlfriend who I was with for 4 years was Methodist. My sister became a Lutheran, and I ended up for my high school years, I ended up going to a Baptist private school. And throughout all that, my family never raised any objections against the differences between beliefs. Not that I ever really, addressed it too much myself. I just went, there are differences here, but nobody's raising a fuss about it. And I'm confident my parents would know what those differences are before they sent me to, this other school. So I guess it's okay. So I never really questioned it, but that being open to multiple different ideas and whatnot also opened up me to eventually get into metaphysics when I got out of high school. I got out of the overly Christian environment and then went into, then on my own I started having experiences, and as I started looking for explanations, I came across metaphysics, I came across energy work, I came across the vampire community and the otherkin communities. And I spent the next 13 years of my life in that community, in that belief system.
You were persecuted for that belief too, right?
When I was in the Army, yes. And then because my first sergeant outed me to my father, I ended up getting persecuted by my own father when I came home.
Wow.
But that never actually affected the belief. Was a collage of different beliefs from around the world. I pieced it together with my own rationality, borrowing from this, borrowing from that, and then basically created a system where nothing actually contradicted each other. It's just that, okay, each thing had its own realm that it presided over, and we had a means of interacting with them all. So, but, and I basically ended up calling myself a energy worker. And we have a chart, a poster here at the ACA, periodic table of irrational nonsense. I that's my favorite thing here because it actually I can go through this and go, okay, 80% of this thing is what I used to believe in, and there's also a couple items on there that I didn't even hadn't even called into question yet, and it's like, oh, let me look that up, and why the hell did I believe in this in the first place? Oh my gosh!
So how long have you been? Well, how long would you identify as an atheist?
Since February.
Oh wow.
Yeah, a few years ago, I came across the atheist experience, and since I was persecuted so much, I enjoyed having a shoe put on the other foot there and having all their arguments countered by Matt and Jeff and the rest of the crew.
Yeah.
And I went there and I decided they're in my backyard. Let's go pay a visit.
Nice.
And had all that skeptical scrutiny turned against me, and it's like, okay, that raised the bar for me to go, okay, it rooted me further, into my own belief system. But it also raised the bar. Okay, I need to be able to bring this to them. So that raised the bar for me on what kind of standards I set for myself for how to present it. And 3 years, I got it all trimmed down. I can explain the whole collage of beliefs through the spiritual energy explanation. Wow. But I couldn't, but that wasn't good enough to bring it. And for 3 more years, I just sat there, without actually being able to, I just eventually, you know what? I want to go pay a visit and see what these people are like again, see what happens. I have no idea what to expect. And ended up coming across the full community, not just the after show thing. And I ended up being exposed to street epistemology, and I started looking at that. I learned a few more. I've tweaked a few things that I had misconceptions about how logic worked, and started reevaluating things. I learned a few things about psychology, and eventually came to the realization that I had better explanations for my experiences than I did than the spiritual explanations that I had before. And Occam's razor, the fewer assumptions that are required for that explanation makes it a more likely explanation. So the psychological ones won out over the spiritual ones.
Yeah.
And I signed up that day as soon as I made that realization.
Wow. Well, good. It sure is good to have you aboard.
And so now here I am, a member of the Vanguard.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Regular volunteer at the ACA.
Beautiful. Yeah. What I like to do, I talked to David Call about that, this very thing when he was on the show a little bit ago, is what I like to see is the younger generation. Well, you're a little bit younger. You're still younger than me. But the younger generation.
Thank you for that.
You're still very young. But I like to see the younger generation coming up and just filling in these slots and moving ahead and advancing and finding opportunities to share, because all of us have a testimony, all of us have something to share. If we just listen and give other people chances and platforms, right,
Correct.
to talk, to go out and do things. So that's one of my main passions. I want to see other people collaborate with other groups and have to be a mouthpiece and to share and do this for the community and the movement. Anyway, so let's talk about the Vanguard, the Atheist Vanguard. So tell the viewers what you guys are about, what the goals are, what do you do during the show, what do you do when you go out and do interviews and so forth.
Well, the Vanguard is based on 2 parts. The first part is actually going out and interviewing normal people doing their normal thing. Primarily, it's been at the San Antonio Alamo. The second part is going back and taking those interviews and kind of just breaking apart. As you can see, from Phoenix's history and from, even our history when we ran across the Christian alchemists, there's such a wide variety of people out there that believe different things. And one of the things that I see a lot in the comments that people are still trying to understand about Atheist Vanguard is that we're not there to challenge their beliefs. We're there to elicit understanding of what they believe and why, and not because if it's an open conversation, we don't have to, and they're not getting pushback or ridicule. We get more information. We get more of a general feel of what they believe, and even. And it is true, though, that a lot of people have very weird, foundations of what
weird
they
by
believe.
our standards. By them, it's completely rational.
Well,
according
actually,
to what they believe.
If you look at a common theme, you can start seeing the wheels start to kind of fall into place. And I'm like, I believe that. We do see that, and that is the magic of Atheist Vanguard. When we come back into the studio, it's the banter, it's the camaraderie, it's the cohesion that we have with each other. That's really makes we are the top 3 show on the ACA.
Wow.
Yeah, we are the third right now.
We are number 3
as far as subscribers or views or
earnings.
Beautiful.
But honestly, we're nowhere near the next 2 up. But
No.
we are
3.
We're currently holding at.
But you
third.
guys are doing something that very few people do. Actually going out there and doing the interview.
That's just it, is that the interviews are only one aspect of what we do out there. Other than that, we're also, for those we can't get in front of the camera, we're just doing standard activism. We're positively promoting atheism, making sure that people are aware of our existence, and making sure that their potential misconceptions about us are wrong, and answer any questions they have, or if they want to start a debate, we'll start a debate with them. But most of us take the epistemological approach, and we have people in the area that will join us from time to time as well.
Yeah.
And we'll use your signs to elicit conversations.
Yeah, the signs generally work pretty well.
Yep.
It draws them in, no doubt.
I think that the first incidents that really showed that Atheist Vanguard was a force to be really considered and reckoned with is our 5-part series on Tommy McMurtry.
Oh, yeah.
Refresh my memory.
He was involved in the Make America Straight Again movement.
What Ben interviewed? It was a phone interview?
It was a phone interview that Ben Estevelle, who was a producer and also a occasional host and co-host, he actually got an interview with this gentleman, and it was just basically, again, it was no pushback. It was like, tell me what you believe. And so he believes some pretty crazy things. He believes that children need to be stoned. He believes that gays need to be government needs to put them to death. He believes that the community, the Christian community, needs to pray depression onto the gay community. He believes that there shouldn't be equal rights when it comes to marriage and when it comes to equality. All these sorts of crazy things. And so we did a 5-part interview with this it was a pretty long, in-depth interview. And we had guests like Mr. Atheist, Thomas Westbrook. We had Arn Ra.
Wow.
We don't forget he's called the whole pumpkin thing.
Yeah, he did the Mr. Pumpkin.
Wow.
Yep. And so it was a really well in-depth. It was very trying. I did all 5 parts. So it was me and Jamie Boone, who is a host of Talk Heathen, and different guests that we had throughout the time. And we really delved into it. And it really, that's when we started building a really strong foundation of a fan base. And really showed that we were something serious and something worthwhile and people took interest in.
Beautiful. Yeah. So as far as goals, let's talk about the goals. What are the goals you guys have for the Atheist Vanguard? What are your main objectives? What do you want to accomplish?
Well, mostly I'd say that we want to be able to show how we rationalize the beliefs that are I guess you can say delivered or preached at us. Yeah. We're going out there and talking to people and getting an idea of what they believe in. Some actually want to try to convert us.
Oh, yeah.
But we take those beliefs and then we go, okay, you believe in this. You've made some of these claims here. Some of them we'll go and look up. Some will and verify. We'll do some research. Others, we'll take, okay, this strikes me as odd. It flies in the face of what I've heard from people that claim to be from the same belief system as you. So we'll go and analyze what that says in their religious texts, or but mostly we're applying skepticism to it. And for the moral claims, we're going secular humanism. How does secular humanism evaluate what you're saying, what you're claiming is a basis of a moral action or something along those lines? and the more outlandish it is, the more we have to talk about.
Good. Do you think that this epistemology style that you present during the interviews and then even here in the studio when you break it down, do you think that this is beneficial for those that are being interviewed and also the listeners out there at the Alamo, wherever we're at, and the listeners here at the show?
Well, the thing is that not everybody applies the exact same approach. Each one of us has our own approach, so we're going to get a variety of different styles of dealing with things. Bulk of us do a focus on epistemology, but you'll still get a good bit of point-counterpoint going on as well. But the epistemological approach works, from my personal standpoint, I believe it actually works best for the one-on-one, talking to the person to actually get them to understand. That works quite well with other people that are just watching, but the point-counterpoint also works well for people that are watching the show as well. Mm-hmm. And so having a mix really gets a broader audience engaged and reaches more people.
Do you have any believers that leave comments on the Vanguard?
Oh, yeah. We have...
what type of comments would you say?
We have one who likes to leave cut and paste of Ray Comfort.
Oh, wow.
Have you ever lied? Blah, 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 blah.
Oh, my gosh. Have you ever stole? Have you ever lusted?
Yep.
Have you ever... Yeah.
We've encountered his church at the Georgetown Market days before. That was an hour and 45 minutes, I believe.
You stayed there with those guys? I walked off, so it was you and...
me and Viral.
Viral, you stayed for an hour and 45 minutes.
Hour and 45 minutes.
More patient than I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to go back also to the goals real quick.
Yes.
So it's kind of a complicated... So there's the goal of engaging people, understanding what they believe, and then processing, and processing that to understand, how do they come to these beliefs, or at least get a general idea. Again, we want to elicit as much information from them as possible and without any pushback. There's also other organizations and individuals that we encounter that are flat out dangerous that we want to expose as well. One that comes to mind is TFP, which is a Catholic, a militant Catholic organization.
Yeah, that'll be on our Marriage is Marriage episode. And honestly, the more I researched them, at first I just found them a little offensive, but as I researched them and saw what they were doing, it's like, oh my gosh.
They are dangerous.
Is that the guys we ran into at San Antonio at the Alamo a couple months ago? The whole group of them?
Yeah, the whole group that basically ambushed us near the end,
So we want to expose those type of organizations that hijacked a religious philosophy and have militarized it and weaponized it. So it can be an organization and even individuals. We got a lot of individuals that just are stark crazy, that are just convinced that the end times are here and that gays are responsible for that, or women's rights, or abortions, or lesbians, all this sort of craziness. So we want to expose the ridiculousness of it. And again, there's this fine line of respecting people's beliefs, but if there's a belief out there that is so ridiculous, so dangerous, it does need to be exposed and combated in a respectful way, in an educated way, in a philosophical, pointing out the fallacies and the downright bigotry and hatred that these type of beliefs oppose.
Yes.
Because we've talked about this, how, I am not an anti-theist when it comes to most things. And again, atheism is a small part of who I am. My main goal is humanism. But there are people out there, there are organizations out there that both sides can come together and agree this is wrong. This needs to be stopped in any way. We need to strike back at them, whether it be monetary, whether it be information campaigns. There are things that that both believers and non-believers can come together and say, this is wrong. A good example of that is the Westboro Baptist Church.
Oh, boy.
Where we saw Christians, we saw non-believers, we saw all facts of religion and non-religion come together and say, these people are wrong, they're hateful, they're bigoted, they need to be stopped. And that's one of the goals that I believe that that we're starting to encompass with an atheist vanguard is pointing out that we're not so much different. That there are basic fundamentals that we all believe. We all believe that people have a right to be happy, that they have a right to be fed, they have a right to be healthy, they have a right to have a community, they have a right to freedoms, but we also have obligations to each other. to provide that security, to provide that love, to provide that support. And it doesn't need to be these barriers that we've created ourselves. There doesn't need to be a God separating us.
Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Thank you. I just came up with that with the top of my head.
Wow, good preaching, man. That was
Good
good.
speech.
We got it on. I was just saying, I wish we were recording it, but we got it on record.
And it's not the NyQuil talking either.
Oh, it's actually you.
It's the Robitussin.
One of the two, or maybe a combination.
Combination,
A
yep.
combination, yeah. Hey, let's talk about some of your favorite topics that you guys have discussed here in the studio. I know Ben does most of the, and by the way, Ben is a very patient interviewer. Would you agree?
Oh, well, he likes to fish for interesting responses. So he will actually spend. There was one guy that we've actually done some videos of. His interview was so long, we had to break it up, and we'll probably end up getting through it in its entirety eventually in the studio. But he spent almost a couple of hours talking to the same guy just because he wanted to fish out one really interesting belief system, and found out that actually that may not be something on that was on record, so I'm not going to straw man the guy.
Okay. That's okay. So
I'll wait for the video to come out.
Let's talk about some of your favorite topics that you guys have talked about on this show.
I'll start. I always tend to favor the extreme supernatural. Again, because I am an author that pretty much focuses on biblical science fiction.
Okay.
So I'm always looking for inspiration. One of my favorite episodes was the part 5 of Tommy McMurtry with Aaron Ra, and we just went off on
demons.
Demons. I was able to obtain information from Aaron Ra that the atheist community had been looking for the longest time. And I was able to get that information out of Aaron Ra because Aaron Ra talks about his religious history kind of similar, a little bit similar to Phoenix, where it was kind of the metaphysical. Mm-hmm. And there was a time when he said that the closest that he could describe his religious stance and belief was that he was a Jedi. And so I asked the question, I was like, if you were a Jedi, what color would your lightsaber be?
Silver, apparently.
Well, it was some weird. It was like a gunmetal silver.
He said silver, gray. Yeah, he went into gunmetal.
Some weird rock name, but so that was me. That's my claim to fame. I can check that off my bucket list.
Okay, that's number one. You got to have some more favorite.
Well, it's kind of funny. I'm not gonna be able to do it this Halloween, but I really wanted to dress up like Aaron Ra for Halloween. They would call me Mini Ra.
Mini Raw, Mini Raw.
Because he's about as big as Phoenix.
Yeah.
Your hair longer or
I have no idea. We'd have to stand side by side at this
We have
point.
to do a scientific test and see which one's got longer hair. Yeah.
I will say his is smoother though.
So how about you,
shinier.
Phoenix? When you're out there, you go out with us a lot, and you. So some of your favorite moments or topics and talks that you've had with people.
Honestly, it's mostly. You want the talks that we do here or the talks we have on the street?
Let's do on the street first, and then one here.
Yeah, on the street, the fun ones in the studio I didn't actually get to the interviews for. But on the street, we end up encountering the really aggressive ones, and they come yelling and screaming at us right on the outset. But as long as you're nice, calm, cool, collected, don't throw insults out at them. Yeah. I had one lady, it was a homeless lady, that was sitting on the bench right in front of where we were doing going to be doing the interviews at. And even before the cameras were set up, she's yelling and screaming at us as soon as she realizes we're atheists. Yeah. And I just go over, talk to her. About 45 minutes later, it's like we're best friends.
Yeah.
And it's all just because you're keeping a calm, cool head about it. And she realized that by talking with me that atheists are not what she thought they were. We're not this monstrous thing that she had built up in her head about. So removing those misconceptions is honestly my ultimate favorite part. Okay. But then you get the people that get really emotional about their beliefs. And some people go, he looks like he's about to have an emotional breakdown just because he's encountered somebody that doesn't believe in God and then is so horrified what's going to happen to us. He's on the verge of tears, but he's also so shaky that if I start trying to poke holes in his own belief system, he's going to have a full, complete breakdown.
Yeah.
So it's like, I want to talk to those people, but I can't bring myself to, because there's risk involved.
Yeah, there is. And sometimes I think I'm a little bit guilty of this, but sometimes we do lose our cool, especially when we're threatened with hell and we're called names and all. But for the most part, we attempt to keep a cool.
I'm actually saddened by a lot of the people. It seems to be there's a lot of people that are just so focused on the end times and the end of the days, and it shows not only such a despair that's present in our society, but the despair that is not being able to be quenched by religion. I mean, a lot of these people, especially the fundamentals, the evangelicals, they just are anticipating this end of the world. They're latched onto this hope and desire that there's something better than this, and and without realizing that what they have here and now is so important, and that prayer, the thoughts and prayers are not enough. We need action. We need compassion. We need love. We need empathy and sympathy. That's the essence of humanism.
Beautiful.
But they are just they are rejoicing at the disasters, the natural disasters, man-made. They are anticipating this end of days because they don't see anything better.
It's sad.
It really,
It really is sad.
and it's an unfulfilled promise that is 2,000 years old, and it's time that we move on from that. There are better things to here and now. We have such a short time here, 80 years plus, and there's so much that it can be done and should be done that we're not doing if we're focusing on the horizon to a possible reward that we really don't even know what it is. We don't know what heaven really is, even if you do believe in that. And it's just so simple to me that there's so much work that can be done, so much benefit that we can do if we focused on the now, not worrying about the heavenly rewards that may or may not come.
Yeah. There's a couple of interesting things that I've encountered out there. One is that there's a lot of street preachers down in San Antonio, but something actually really disturbing is that the bulk of the street preachers out there that I encountered personally, at least, were young Earth creationists. And so they're full denials of the basic foundations of many of our scientific understandings right now, such as evolution or the Big Bang, so on and so forth. And when I watched the online debate with R and Ron, Kent Hovind, and it's like that brought me to tears because almost every single last one of those street preachers told me to go look at Kent Hovind,
Don't you mean convict number, blah, blah, blah?
I'm not going to get there.
Yeah, he was convicted.
Aaron Ra refers to him by his convict number and suppose
he started doing that because Kent Hovind made up a name to go with Arn's original first initial before he took on his online screen name as his official legal name, and because he wouldn't respect him by calling him by his name, he started calling him Arn started calling him by a convict name. But that's a side note. We don't need to get into that. But seeing those horrible arguments and how dishonest Kent Hovind was being, and then the fact that I'm encountering so many people out there that are actually buying it, that hurt. That actually brought me to tears. Seeing so many people out on the streets that actually are buying those lies.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, we're going to close it up here in a couple of minutes, but I'll tell you what really excites me is, of course, I plan the San Antonio stuff and these other group and these other activities, but when you Vanguard guys go, and I'm kind of out on the corner with some of the other people with the signs trying to direct them for you guys to do interviews.
And we really appreciate it.
And I enjoy seeing, we can't forget this, guys, that there are people that are on the outskirts that are not being interviewed, but are listening, that are watching. Just like when they listen to debates, right? It's not only for the two people debating.
Oh, yeah.
It's for those listeners. And I don't know how many times. I think it might have been, well, you were standing near me, Phoenix, at the Alamo a couple months ago. I think Ben was doing an interview. And this is when that group of Catholics, the ones you were talking
Yeah, the
about, were there.
TFP. Yeah.
But I noticed there were two girls, college girls, and their two boyfriends there. They came up to me and said, Sir, what is going on here? What are you doing out here as atheist? And we got talking. I explained to her what we're doing. And she pointed to the Catholics, the Christians, and said, they're very angry, and you guys are not. You seem very kind and patient and nice. So she started telling me, one of the girls, and all four of them were freshmen or sophomores at a particular college in San Antonio. They were locals in San Antonio. And the two girls started opening up to me about they're right on the fence, and they're going to college now. They were raised either Baptist or Catholic.
I love the ones on the fence.
That's what we're after.
Those are the most engaging conversations because they're actually evaluating both sides of the issue.
Yeah.
They have people in their lives that are believers, and they have people in their lives that aren't, and they're just going, okay, which one do I go with? And, this seems reasonable, this seems reasonable, but I don't know which is the right one to go with.
But what happened was she was they were standing back observing for 10 minutes, listening to those hardcore young Catholic men hollering at you and Ben and the others, and I had to just walk off. I couldn't believe the hatred and the anger there, and she saw the difference. And that's what, just by watching you guys do the interviews and holding your cool and putting a face on atheism, right, and secular humanism, normalizing it. And they started asking questions. Their boyfriends came. They ended up taking a picture with me, and they were asking about secular humanism and atheism, and they all have doubts. They were thinking about leaving the church. They don't know where to go. That made me happy. That made my day right there. And I told them about FACT, about the secular group.
In San Antonio.
In San Antonio. And there are people out there.
And they send somebody out to join us every once in a while, too, and it's greatly appreciated.
Yeah, but
Can I tell a quick story?
Tell a quick
I
story.
was in San Antonio, and I was actually with the guy from FACT. And a young lady came up to us, and she was a believer. She was actually with her church group. She was just separated. She had got separated with them and was waiting for them at the Alamo. And she was like, I'm part of a church group, but I'm really curious about what you believe and why you believe that. And we had a very interesting, nice conversation. We sat down next to her and we talked for about 10, 15 minutes. And then her church group showed up. And it was really interesting dynamics. The males in the group were like, what? Because they saw we had the signs. Like, what are you doing with them? Ooh. And she goes, I'm having a civilized conversation. And she stood up. She stood up for us. And it was funny. The girls within that group actually came with us, sat with us, and talked for a bit. And the boys were kind of like on the outskirts, prowling like a bunch of hyenas.
Yep.
And it was really interesting. And so we have people that are on the fence, but we also have people that are believers that are saying, hey, we have the same questions and doubts that you do. We've just come to different conclusions. We can have these differences of opinion and still be civil to each other. We can still have conversations. You may not change my mind, I may not change your mind, but at least we understand each other a little bit better and can come away with a possible friendship, or at least an understanding of each other, and a opportunity for cooperation in the future.
I love it when it turns out that way.
Because we have, in the end, we all have the same goals.
Absolutely. And we're all human. I do appreciate you guys and the others that go out with me that are friendly and kind and are patient with believers. And we're all human. We all have to share this place called Earth together. And it's okay if we disagree, friendly discourse, and dissent. And we cannot cut our dissenters out totally. We've got to let other people talk. They got things to say. We hear the same stuff all the time, but then that's where the epistemology comes in, the other things. We could try to help them to get out of that. But it's always about being kind to the person, not always to the beliefs you were talking about. There are some dangerous beliefs out there.
And they need to be combated.
We have to push back against that. So anyway, I'm really happy about what you guys are doing in Vanguard, and I don't get a chance to watch it very often, but
Do you know when it airs?
Sunday.
But Sundays, what time?
Oh boy, I'm on the spot here. Let's see.
3 p.m.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I was going to let him smoke over that.
Sweating bullets here, like on my own show. Yeah. So
But I'm just trying to prove a point that, when we interview somebody or counter interview, we don't put them on the spot. We just want to elicit information and how you feel. So yeah, but if we can drop some knowledge, we will. So it is at every Sunday at 3 p.m. after Talk Heathen.
yeah. Any other information you want to relay to the viewers about the Atheist Vanguard?
No, but we always appreciate any interactions and comments in the comments on the YouTube channel. Likes are much appreciated, and help us get to number 2. We're coming after you, Talk Heathen.
Little friendly call.
We're coming after you.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap this thing up. Thanks a lot for coming on the show, guys. So thanks for watching the Preaching Humanist. Have a wonderful day. Bye.